This is Polymaths. I'm Darren Rose.
And I'm Suresh John.
You stumbled over your own name.
I wanted to say I'm still Suresh John, but I was like, we didn't establish that in the first one. So that's why I stumbled on saying my own name in the very second thing we said.
You haven't established your identity?
And I'm Suresh John.
You think people listen to the whole first hour and they're just like,
that doesn't sound like him.
That doesn't sound like him. This is all AI generated content. You and I were at Comic-Con this weekend.
We were.
And what was your favorite thing you saw at Comic-Con?
How old we were. I told someone I went, and she said, I'm probably too old. I was like, oh, I'm way older.
Well, the ironic thing is I tried to buy something for my daughter, who's 3, and we went through the whole thing and couldn't find a single thing to buy for a child at a comic book convention.
It's hyper niche for people in their 20s and 30s and people who still dress and behave as if they're 20 and 30s, which we don't do anymore.
We don't have that energy.
But we walked around a lot, and I think we saw a lot of swordsmiths.
There were way more swords than I thought there were going to be.
And a lot of anime characters who weren't represented by anything at the convention. They were just using it as an excuse to dress up.
There was probably 40 women dressed as anime characters, and that there was fewer than 40 anime books being sold.
There was also Daredevil Born Again chicken sandwich launch.
Yeah, it was Mary Brown's Chicken.
Spicy chicken.
Yeah, presents Daredevil Born Again. And it was just like, what? Who cares about what? They're not associated with each other.
But as a launch, it worked really well because the Daredevil Born Again was way up high. So you'd go in to see what the thing was.
Right.
And they had a faux Hell's Kitchen streetscape where you could do a graffiti tag. And then they would put it on a T-shirt. And at the end, there was a big pile of Mary Brown sandwiches. Oh, that is actually, for the chicken, a really effective bait and switch.
It was, I guess, yeah. I don't know. Maybe the people at Mary Brown's are much smarter than I give them credit for.
But I don't think it did much for the show or for Disney Plus.
Do you know Mary Brown's is like the
most Canadian
national
chicken
food of Newfoundland?
Yeah, and they've done very well post 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago with their Proudly Canadian. Because they've always been Proudly Canadian.
Right.
But they're actually pretty good.
There's a Mary Brown's in Ireland. Because they're expanding internationally.
That would be the first place I would go if I were Mary Brown's. Did they originate in Ireland? The first?
No. It's from Newfoundland.
I didn't know that. I wonder if they're doing well in Ireland.
I am curious.
The
perhaps we'll do the next episode as a road trip to Ireland to eat Mary Brown's.
We should have been doing it today.
If we had thought this through at all.
We would have had one. I was like, this is to all our Irish Mary Brown's podcast subscribers.
Let me ask you this question. What are your thoughts on relativity?
In terms of physics or being related to someone?
Both.
Okay.
Whichever is most important to you.
I think everyone thinks they have a really good understanding of what it is.
Yes.
The formula, but the way it's actually explained is a little bit different than just energy equals mass times the square of the speed of light.
But everyone, I think they have a thing in their mind where they're like, I can explain this, and it falls apart
almost immediately.
Yeah, they go, okay, so if you're driving and then the wheels of another car turning the other way, then...
My favorite is that if you ever look it up, which I might have done in the process of preparing for this, most of the thought experiments involve trains. And I realize in 1928, if you're trying to come up with a thought experiment about relative velocity or speed, trains are really the only thing. Supposing you're on a train going 20 kilometers an hour, another train going 10 kilometers an hour. What's the relative speed of that? But yeah, most of the speed expressions were the speed of this object relative to either a stationary object or another object moving at a slightly different speed is X.
Right. I think the best succinct description of relativity is time slows down as you approach the speed of light.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. All right. That's pretty straightforward.
And I only know that because in the movie Deep Blue Sea...
Finally, someone brings up the physics relationship to that movie.
I wanted to save it for the second episode. The chef says to the engineer who runs the physical thing of the whole thing is, you put your hand on a hot pan, a second can seem like an hour. But you put your hand on a hot lid, an hour can seem like a second. And the engineer looks at him and is like, I have a master's in physics and a PhD in engineering. and no professor has ever explained relativity as elegantly as that.
Right. Of course, that's not what relativity is. But
It was a line in the movie. And more importantly, the chef was played by LL Cool J.
LL Cool J has the most fascinating career.
It's the best.
Because he was like, I can't
First
remember,
through the door.
17 or 15 when
he was
got his
living
first
in
record
residence.
contract. Was he really?
Yeah.
At Columbia?
Columbia or NYU, and that's where Def Jam kind of got started, and they
Yeah.
would play tapes in the car outside. But that's how he got started, and then explaining physics.
Yeah. It's
He didn't
wild.
realize he was explaining the character didn't realize he was explaining the physics, but then the Michael Rappaport character said, "Yeah, I have."
Yeah, I love that movie because of the line, "The sharks got smarter." It's great. But LL Cool J became like a giant like TV star, maybe not movie star, but a TV star certainly. And who predicted that? And Ice-T, like,
Ice-T became famous playing a police officer.
which is really going against type.
Really great.
Yeah.
But LL Cool J said, Chris O'Donnell said when I was working with him first time, I was like, "Oh, my kids are going to start listening to your music." He goes, "Which songs?"
Which song?
Because he only knew like the more recent like pop. And he goes, "Yeah, maybe don't play all the songs for your young children."
Right.
That Uncle Todd is. But
Can I tell you an Ice-T story?
Yes, you can.
So I used to host a game show called Match Game, and Ice-T was on it. And the premise of the show is fill in the blanks. And it's supposed to be like double entendres. It's sort of like vaguely naughty. And the clue was, something leading up to, like, it's supposed to be some double entendre for vagina. And I go to Ice-T first, and
You always have to go to the most famous person first, right?
yes,
Yeah.
I go to Ice-T first, and I go, "What's your answer?" And he goes, "I said," and he's written it on the card, and he holds it up to the camera. "I said pussy." You're like, "What are you? We're on TV, man." And then I looked at like the producers who were off camera, and I was just like, "Are we gonna go again?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's fine." I was like, "Are you only doing that because he's famous, or like what's the
etiquette?
Are there no rules at all? It's television."
Was that the only answer he did off rails like that?
It was the most off the rails thing that he said, and it was really funny. It was great, but it was like I was stunned. And then when they aired it, they didn't even bleep it out. And also, it's written. They didn't pixelate it or anything.
Right. There wasn't a drawing, was there?
There was no drawing.
Okay.
No.
I have an Ice-T story that is not as good as that one.
Excellent. We're
But-
going in descending order.
Descending order of relevance and interest.
Yeah.
But he always drinks coffee in scenes on Law & Order Special Victims Unit. And for some reason, either on social media or on Reddit, someone said, "Does Ice-T actually drink coffee in those cups that he's drinking?" And then he came out and said, "Oh, no, I've never had coffee in my life." And it became this whole thing. I was like, well, we should have a thing where we make Ice-T try coffee for the first time because he's Ice-T.
Right.
Drink coffee. And he's always playing a guy. So then there was this thing where he tried coffee and he drank it and people drink it? Like, I would never drink that. It's too hot. It doesn't taste good. Like, he had this abhorrent reaction to the taste of coffee. And the fans were, I guess, nonplussed.
I tried the civet coffee once when I was in Indonesia.
That's the one that gets digested and broken
Yeah,
down
like
by
the animal
by the cat?
eats it and expels it.
Did
And
it
then
taste like that?
Well, you think it's going to taste terrible. And we're like in the jungle, and they just have this like elaborate sort of Rube Goldberg machine looking coffee. It looked like a steampunk device.
Was there a cat like actually there making the...
They had, well,
Like when you say Rube Goldberg device, the first thing is like, is there a cat at the end of that just straining?
the cat's operating the whole thing. And you taste it, and it's like that's like their thing, and the civets are there in the jungle.
Do you have to pretend that it's, oh, really?
No, it just tastes like every other cup of coffee I've ever had.
Which is bad.
Yeah, coffee is fundamentally bad. You ever had Mexican coffee? Mexican coffee is just coffee that is 50% sugar.
Yeah, that's like Vietnamese
It's
coffee.
so good. Yeah.
Any regional coffee that's like better is like, oh, we put condensed milk in it.
Right.
Or we put enough sugar in it to make the spoon stand straight up. Yeah, that's not coffee.
Yeah, that's the secret to good coffee. Is turning it into something else.
That's why sugar is so popular.
Sugar is
Because
very popular.
It improves the taste of virtually everything it's added to, except for maybe salt.
I once read a book on salt. It was called Salt, and it was about the history of salt. And my wife mentions it very frequently as a marker of how boring I am. She's like, I can't listen to you. You once wrote a book about salt.
Have you ever seen the movie Salt?
I have seen the movie Salt.
There's no salt in that movie.
There's no salt in that movie. Also, it was originally supposed to be Tom Cruise.
That's the most interesting thing about that movie.
And then it's Angelina Jolie.
And it's still kind of good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
If you imagine it with Tom Cruise, I don't see it being that much different.
What are your thoughts on Captain America: New World Order? I saw it for the first time on Saturday.
This is good. This is going to be a fresh hot take. Mine was the day before.
Right.
So the Thursday
you
before
see everything before it comes out.
Just because I like to read all the stuff, and usually it's all ruined the first time you read a review.
Right.
So I always check in the elevator on the way down because I saw it by myself, and the people who saw it with me were all in the elevator, and they're all kind of looking around. And one of the girls was like, so when's the next one coming out? And the guy on my left was like, I think Fantastic Four. And I was like, Thunderbolts. And that's coming up before. And then we started kind of a very short conversation. Like, so was that good? And they were kind of like, I'm trying to be polite. Like, nah. And I said,
it's not like they made it. You know,
well,
you don't have to be
I
polite.
said the problem was every good thing in that movie was in the trailer.
Right.
And they played it in the movie as if I assume by now everyone who watches this podcast has seen it.
Yes.
Red Hulk is in the movie as if it's a huge surprise.
Yes.
But it's in every single poster and trailer.
On the poster.
The one cool moment was that, and they gave it away. So then what are we watching? So that was my initial thing.
Yeah, they ruined the whole thing because that's the marketing campaign is the big surprise of the movie. And it happens at the end. It's a 2-hour movie. And Red Hulk shows up at an hour 45.
I said in the elevator right after, it was like waiting for Godzilla for the 11 minutes that he's in the movie. But then when he arrives, he's great. And they're like, oh yeah, that was great. Like, but they didn't do it the right way because when he arrived, it was like not as good as any other Hulk scene you'd seen.
Yeah.
Except for the surprise, which you already knew.
Yeah.
And they were all like, yeah, it is like the thing in Godzilla because you're waiting, and then you see a foot. Right. And then everyone goes nuts. And this is like, yeah, but we saw the foot. We saw all of that already. Yeah. And you ruined you played your card months ago in the first trailer.
And he doesn't do anything that the Green Hulk doesn't do.
Can't do.
Like it's the exact same power. Oh yeah, he's throwing things. He jumps high.
He looks a little bit different and he beats up a new guy. But yeah. What about the other stuff?
Well, to me, the interesting thing about this Captain America is he's just a guy. He's got no super strength or anything. And they don't address that at all. Like how that would make it hard to be Captain America if you're just a guy who lifts weights. Other than the fact he just goes, wish I took the serum. But he doesn't. So they talk about it the whole time and they never takes it. And you're like, well, what's the point?
He's basically another Iron Man who flies and has a lot of cool gadgets, but without the other characteristics of the cool Tony Stark alter ego.
He's poor Iron Man.
He's state-sponsored Iron Man.
He's Iron Man for communists.
But then they had all these things like the leader and Sidewinder and things that didn't really need to be. Like you could tell what had been added later when they said, oh, we don't have enough because we gave away Red Hulk already. Yeah. So we'll put in this Sidewinder thing. It's like, who is that? What is this? And then the thing.
And Giancarlo Esposito is like a 65-year-old man fighting a 35-year-old man.
And holding his own in some way.
In what world?
And then the worst thing, I think, at the end, when you stay by the credits, the post-credit scene, was like, I don't even want to see this vague thing that they're talking about, because usually there's some cool thing.
Right.
Someone texted me, oh, is Blade in it? I was like, no, not even something cool like that. Like just putting some reference to something. No, it's just like, well, the worst is yet to come. Like, oh, that's not promising.
Yeah.
I think they're going to...
like this franchise is going to get worse?
And then I feel bad for Anthony Mackie because this was his big moment. And then I just saw him in a social media thing maybe 2 days ago about, I've been working in this business a long time. And the thing I just, let's be real, keep it 100, is like success isn't earned, it's given.
Right. I thought that's interesting.
And then I was like, is it because of the movie? Like, was he like that? Because he was like as famous as you can be for like the day before the movie came out.
Yeah.
And then the movie came out, and then he's feeling this, like, where do you go from here? Because he's done everything. He was saying, I've done Broadway, I've done television shows, Papa Doc still gets shout outs more than anything else in his career, and probably still. And now he's Captain America, and he's still kind of, He's unhappy.
8 Mile is like Eminem is so popular that everyone on earth loves 8 Mile. Like my wife's parents love it. They're Polish immigrants. They're like, this is great.
It's hip hop Rocky.
It's hip hop Rocky, yeah.
And everybody likes Rocky.
Yeah, but you would think if you would like had never heard of boxing and boxing wasn't really something you'd ever been interested in at all, and in fact you tried to avoid it. If they made a movie about boxing, you probably wouldn't love it. Mm-hmm. But somehow, that's how charming Eminem is.
But they also make the battles seem like it's very accessible.
Yeah.
Like what they're doing in whatever language they're doing in is, oh, yeah, I get, oh, and then choke. Everyone's had a choke moment
right
in the very beginning. And then his eventual redemption is it's a perfect movie. And then the extras on that movie are pretty good when they show him.
Yes.
It's on YouTube.
And he like battles.
Yeah, but he's saving his voice.
Yeah.
And then all these extras are getting like really cocky. And then he's like, forget it. And then,
yeah.
it's like he flicks them like 1/8 of his fingernail and everyone goes flying off the table. It's the best. And it's such a great lesson. Like all these people like, oh yeah, he earned the right to tell the story that you're doing right now is this underground thing. Like he did all of that and was rejected until I think a tape of his rap Olympics performance wound up in some PA at Interscope Records, and Jimmy Iovine said, "Hey, you should listen to this guy." And Dr. Dre is like, "Who is that?"
Yeah, who is the corollary of Eminem in the world of science?
Ooh, that is an excellent question.
See, it can't be Nikola Tesla because he was ultimately like not that successful.
Right.
So who becomes the biggest thing after being completely
sidelined and working in like a patent clerk office?
One possible application. Speaking of relativity.
But he was sidelined also because of his race more than anything else.
Eminem or Einstein?
Maybe Einstein. Yeah, that famous quote, if my theory is proven correct, France will embrace me as a French person and German. But if I'm proven incorrect, Germany will vilify me. Like everyone would reject him based on the success of that thing. So possibly because of race, but also because he wasn't a trained scientist.
Right, that's true too. Also married his cousin.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Was, to be fair, more popular back then.
Did he know his cousin was his cousin?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. So it's like...
that's how smart he was. He was like, I'm going to marry my cousin. Everyone was like, should we be doing that? I think it probably made it trendier, you know? People were like, I don't know, you know.
Was it a distant cousin or a first or second cousin?
I think it was his first cousin. Maybe it was his second cousin. I don't remember.
Well, it seems...
But you know, if the smartest guy on earth is doing it, I mean, it can't be that bad, right?
Maybe it's because he was in a very limited pool of potential marriage partners, and he said, well, you're here.
I mean...
Like, was it a closed community? Or
that's
was
what
it
the Egyptian pharaohs also said.
And Giuliani.
Giuliani?
Giuliani married his cousin in 1968 and didn't divorce her until like 1983.
And to be fair, we talk about a limited pool of possible partners. He was in New York, which is full of people.
Mm-hmm. Now, he's no Einstein, but they do share that one trait in common.
Yeah, Rudy Giuliani is not Einstein.
And then I thought maybe he eventually ended the relationship because he found out they were cousins. No, he knew they were cousins the whole time. But then they eventually annulled the marriage because they hadn't received a special papal dispensation to marry as cousins. So I feel like there's a lot more to the story.
I think it's weird that you got to ask the Pope for permission
to
because
marry.
That means he'll grant it.
Yeah, and maybe they thought, well, this relationship is over. We'll couch it as, oh, the papal dispensation was a big problem. So
that's bizarre. Do you know they've recently found the last tomb of Pharaoh in of the Tutankhamun era? They found it like 2 weeks ago
in Egypt.
In Egypt.
Was it like a accidental discovery?
No. They've been looking for it,
oh.
But they're just like essentially just sifting through the dirt. Like they didn't have like a lot to go on, and then they found it. But it's like you see the pictures and you're like, I don't know, that's not impressive.
Maybe it's because we're so conditioned to being like,
Well, the
Mummy
Tutankhamun's tomb
Returns.
is like perfectly preserved, which is why it's the most famous thing.
Right.
And then they found this guy, and it's kind of like it's all kind of falling apart. But it was like undisturbed. It was just like through nature, it had kind of fallen to pieces.
Is there a curse?
Well, we'll see. It's only been 2 weeks.
And were there riches or sarcophagi?
There was a sarcophagus. They found like the guy, and but there was not.
Were there canopic jars?
What's a canopic jar?
I'm so glad you asked. Canopic jars are the jars that they put the preserved mummified organs in after they take them out because you need them in the afterlife. So your heart, your spleen, so your mummified body will be there. And then everything that they took out of you will be beside you in little canopic jars.
That theory doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like, you're going to need this. We're going to put it somewhere you can find it. I was like, man, I've been keeping them in my abdomen for so long. That's the first place I'd look.
There's a lot of things about burial rites that don't make any sense.
Like what?
Like Jerry Seinfeld famous is like, they give the person in the coffin a pillow. And that's true. Like in whatever your tradition is, like a lot of it just doesn't make any sense. But we do it because that's the way it's been done, and that's the way it's going to continue to be done. So the canopic jars, for them, to us, is as foreign as a pillow under the head would be to them.
Right.
For us.
I mean, I guess. But still, even if you're just sitting around the room talking about it and you go, what should we do to this guy? Well, he's going to the afterlife. He's going to want all his innards in a handbag.
I think more distressing is the fact they'd also embalm and preserve your servants.
Whoa.
So that in the afterlife, when you come back, you would have people to wait on you. Whether
How bad would that suck?
That would be terrible.
Because being a servant, already a bad job.
And
That's a bad job this year. Imagine, 4,000 years ago.
And you don't get canopic jars. You just get one communal urn and everything gets thrown in there and you have to go and fish them all out. These dusty gallbladders. Is this yours? I don't know.
Just furious.
A canopic urn.
That is, the communal jar, I think, is, I mean, when are we ever going to respect the working person,
The Egyptians.
We're joined today by Michelangelo the Turtle.
He's one of our more popular references of the last 2 episodes, so I think including him is only befitting.
And the info card on the back said he wanted to be a stand-up comedian.
I never knew that.
I didn't know they had ambitions separate from being Ninja Turtles.
I did learn after the last episode that he is and his 3 brothers are red-eared sliders, which is the most common kind of domestic turtle in North America. But I didn't know that stand-up comedian. And you're a stand-up comedian. You should.
I should have known that. But also, I think,
is he the most famous aspiring stand-up comedian on earth?
Well, maybe, but it's a little bit annoying to be like, oh, you're a great ninja, and you're like, yeah, but I'd like to do this other thing. It's like when T.I. started doing stand-up. It's like, just keep rapping, man. You're great
Stay in
at
your
that.
lane. Stay in your lane.
Keep being rich. You already have that job. What are you showing up to the Funny Bone in Cleveland for?
Who is the most successful rapper turned comedian? No, rapper turned stand-up comedian. Is there one?
Rapper turned stand-up comedian? I don't think so. It's a bit like NBA players who try to rap. It's like, well, no one really makes it.
But Damian Lillard is pretty good.
Damian Lillard is pretty good.
Shaq might be the most successful one.
Yes.
But
not
just
the most
because he's Shaq.
Allen Iverson was great.
He was good, but his raps hasn't aged well.
Yes.
Damian Lillard is pretty good now.
Yeah.
If you play him against some SoundCloud successful, I was like, I can't really say who's better or who's worse.
I think Damian Lillard is legitimate. Yeah.
And he's also like one of the best basketball players. So maybe he has that crown.
Steven Jackson was also very good.
Who's a bad NBA player who's a great rapper? Because I don't know this one.
Oh.
Because they're all probably fans of rap.
That I don't know. Lonzo Ball, maybe? He had a popular...
Did he do that song at the NBA All-Star game? Was that him? Or Jello?
No,
that was a ball.
Oh, no, the third one...
Jello.
Yeah, okay. is a popular singer.
Because that was a hit song.
Yeah. And Victor Oladipo is like a world-class R&B singer.
Really?
But it doesn't have the same sort of like cachet to be like a singer. Like he's like sings ballads. Mm-hmm. But like that's just not the same audience, as people who are watching the NBA.
I don't know if you remember as clearly as I do, but Victor Oladipo, I believe, was the guy who wore a T'Challa mask and went and saluted Chadwick Boseman and did his dunk when he was in the dunk contest.
Oh, yeah.
Before it was the big, massive success it was. Like, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he went and he put it on and he walked over to him because he was sitting courtside, Wakanda forever, and then he did a dunk. But he didn't win the dunk contest. But that was Victor Oladipo.
I mean, he has
range.
He has range. He has range.
We all contain multitudes.
But still, I think if you're really great at one thing, it's very
Stay
annoying
in your
to try.
lane.
Yeah, stay in your lane.
He's
Don't
also a
try to be a
mutant.
comedian. Yeah, he's also a mutant and a ninja. And his English is great. I mean,
They eat pizza.
they do a lot of things well, and I just what are other crossover things where you're just like, that guy did two things? Or that person, I should say, do two things. Mary Curie
Yes.
won the Nobel Prize in two different disciplines.
And she
physics
also
and chemistry.
and she was married to Louis Pasteur.
Was she?
Yeah,
Really?
I think so. I think that's a fact. I'm going to go on the record as saying that Marie Curie, discoverer of radium, was married to Louis Pasteur, father of pasteurization.
Here's one thing that I don't like about European milk is they sell it in the grocery store at room temperature.
Because it's preserved or not preserved?
Well, I asked somebody because I was in Barcelona a few months ago for like 10 days doing shows. So we're there, we're buying groceries and stuff. And my daughter's there who's 3, so she drinks milk. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable. I would buy refrigerated milk, but it's like, it's all just on a shelf.
Is it in a Tetra Pak or is it in a bag? Like
They don't have it in a bag. They
like
have
a
it in
drinking box?
Tetra Paks. They have it in plastic, like clear plastic
I guess
bottles.
it's because the engineering of the pack is such that as long as
I
it's
was told,
consumed-
they're like, oh, it's because it's pasteurized. And I was like, our milk is also pasteurized, but we keep it cold.
but our packaging isn't as good.
Is that
Our
what
packaging
it is?
is as cheap as you can get. Cardboard
And that's
with
why it
wax.
goes bad?
I think that's why it has to be refrigerated. But also, our palate is different. We're not used to drinking room temperature or hot milk the way maybe you are in Europe.
Yeah, but I will say this. You've been in my car recently.
That's true.
And someone,
Room temperature milk.
I don't want to point any fingers. Someone spilled milk in my car, and someone else, it was a 3-year-old, and someone else has not cleaned it up for 2 months. And you can smell my car from here.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't smell like milk anymore so much as it smells like cheese,
Yes.
like a raw milk cheese.
I was like, it was too cold, like for the last 2, and I was just like, I'm just not going to go out there and get wet cleaning.
No, it was too cold, and also it's gonna get spilt again. I've seen her handle objects. Her dexterity is not improving.
Do you make your bed every day? That's a real argument of like, why bother making your bed?
I do only because of the year I spent living only in hotels. And I noticed a real difference in the quality of sleep of getting into an unmade bed, personally, as compared to getting into a made bed. So
Really?
after a year, like a full year, I think it was 2006 of living in hotels, different hotels, I was so conditioned to do it that I just do it. And I don't make it well. Like, you can't bounce a quarter off, but it looks nice.
Right.
And I think that first, for some people, really, that's the start of the sleep clock. Whereas if it's messy, maybe you never get out of bed or you never leave the room and you keep going back. But yeah, I do make my bed.
I don't know why you said it like that.
I think people who make their bed every day and people who don't make it are very suspicious of one.
Very suspicious of
How come you take the 30 seconds to make your bed? Well, how come you make your bed? I'm so free. I'm so free with my laundries.
I like the idea of
Tribes?
of living an unencumbered life by not making your bed.
Yeah, by thinking that
I can
makes
do
you
anything I want.
but makes you think you're some sort of free spirit because look, I don't even make my bed.
yeah, it's like people who think they're interesting because they don't watch television.
I don't own a television. It's like that is that I don't have a phone 25 years ago. I
That's
don't
true.
have a phone.
What do you think about the trend of scaling back against technology? So using like dumb phones, like a
Flip phone?
flip phone, and
Well, as I mentioned in episode 1, I did have a flip phone past the point of people were even making fun of me. They were just kind of annoyed. So I guess, yeah, if you're addicted and it's causing harm to your social life and your attractions, maybe flip phone is the way to go. But never having a phone in the first place is probably good for the first 16 years of your life, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're too...
Those phones are ruining lives.
No, but that's the prized, most coveted demographic for social media companies, for Instagram ads. Any kind of targeted marketing has to sow the seeds of consumption before your brain has lost its neuroplasticity.
Here's a real thing. The most popular time to watch, like the map of how popular TikTok is by hour of the day, is 3 o'clock, because that's when kids get out of school. That's when TikTok is most in use, which says a lot about who's using that platform. So
And-
if you're watching this, you're probably very young.
Sorry. Make your bed.
Make your bed. I also had a flip phone. I had a flip phone until the iPhone 4. So I skipped 4 iPhones.
So the iPhone debuted, as I remember, it was 2006. So 2010. You had a
Something
flip
like
phone?
that.
Yeah. I got mine a year after that because everyone we worked was like, "Why do you have a Motorola Crazer?"
Yes.
Just like, it was a cool flip
That's the
phone.
phone I had too.
But it was like everyone else was now on this.
Yeah.
I also wasn't on before Facebook. I wasn't on MySpace or anything. And everybody I was working with was on. I was like, "What is that for?" And they all would say, like, "I don't know." We were on tour, and everyone was always on their computers. Like, "What are you guys doing?" I was like, "I don't know." Like, they couldn't
Right.
really
I
explain.
don't know what they're doing.
But
They're just so
everybody was
compelled to do
doing it,
Yeah.
and then Facebook shortly supplanted them.
You know what I'm into now that is like a Luddite anti-technology thing?
Cold
Not quite
milk?
anti-technology, but what? Sorry.
Cold milk.
So into cold milk.
I refrigerate my milk, and it is a game changer. Just take your room temperature milk, guys. Put it in the fridge, or if it's winter, outside. Game changer.
Somebody tell Spain about this.
Sorry.
DVDs.
Fantastic.
I'm back into DVDs.
My cable went out once, but the power
Yeah.
was still working. I was like, wait a minute. I have every movie, and because I bought them, I like all of them.
Right.
And then the extras on DVDs are this weird time capsule of when you started buying movies in the first place. Like, you would sometimes buy a DVD and only watch the extras.
Right, to watch the director's commentary or the behind the scenes. Or something, which now they just stopped doing. Those things don't exist anymore.
Yes. Have you ever participated in a director's commentary?
I have not.
Oh,
have you?
No, but I've been referenced in one, and it really shed light on to how those commentaries are made and how much care.
Are you saying it's not a lot of care?
I'm just saying not everything that's said in the director's because they have to talk for about 2 hours and 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Right.
And there's going to be some lulls.
Right.
But if you're on the clock and you're trying to fill like every scene, sometimes you have to confabulate a little bit. And I got a DVD of a movie that I was in, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch this." And after a while, I was like, "Wait a minute, there's a director's commentary on this movie. Maybe I'll watch my scene." And so I watched the scene that I was in, and right away they're like, "Oh, wow, this guy was working at a pharmacy, and I saw him, and he looked cool." And I said, "Yo, why don't you be my movie?" And then we put him in the movie. I was like, "That's not true."
That's hilarious.
And then I tried to go back like, where
Do you think they're guilty of confabulating?
this is what I think happened. I was doing recording of additional dialogue, or ADR, and I was wearing my Future Shop. I was working at Future Shop, may she rest in peace, staff shirt. And the guy could see me. He was in LA and I was in Toronto at Deluxe. He goes, "You work at," the engineer saw me, but the LA guy couldn't. And the engineer was like, "Yeah, he just come from work." He's like, "Yo, where you work?" And I was like, "He doesn't know what Future Shop is." So I was like, "Oh, I work at Best Buy." He goes, "You work at Best Buy? How'd you get in the movie?" I was like, "Oh, I just auditioned and thing." And I think the one part of that he remembered was that I worked at Best Buy,
Right.
which was really Future. So I think he was genuinely like, "I want to say something about this guy," because I was only in the movie for like 15 seconds or 25 seconds. And it was my first movie. So he tried to say something, but he just kind of made it all up. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting, but unhelpful." But I was glad I made the director's cut.
I mean, that's a credit. That's throw that on your IMDb.
The other interesting thing about that particular DVD is they used to cut DVDs into chapters.
Right.
So each chapter would have a frame. And I'm only in the movie for like
What movie is this?
the Chow Yun-Fat, Sean William Scott, Jamie King comic book adaptation of Bulletproof Monk, which is shot in Toronto and Hamilton. But my friend came to Future Shop where I was working the day that it came out on DVD, and so he bought it. And I was like, "Oh, we should watch it later." And he's like, "Yeah, I've already seen it. Yeah, we should watch it." So he put it in at his house, and it came out on the TV. And there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was in 5. And then we got to the chapter I was in, and I was the face of the chapter.
Nice.
So I was like looking back over my shoulder. I was driving a taxi, surprise, and
Funny.
that was the chapter I was. And I thought that was as successful as you could get.
Who do you think is more angry that you were the face of that chapter, Sean William Scott or Chow Yun-fat?
I think Sean William Scott was very happy to have been forgotten in that movie because it was not a big hit. And Chow Yun-fat was probably in all of the other chapters. So I would say Chow Yun-fat would have noticed it, and Sean William Scott would have been happy.
Who are your 5 favorite Asian, being like they make movies in Asia, movie stars? I don't mean just not just ethnically Asian, but rather they're from Hong Kong or Tony Jaa. Where's Tony Jaa from? Thailand.
He's from Thailand. He's good, although he's now using his own name because he was in the Expendables, and he has a different name, and that's his actual name.
What's his real name?
It's much longer.
Oh,
but it's not Tony.
Right.
I know it's not Tony. And then the guy who's also in that movie from The Raid, Iko Uwe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where they have to go through the building. That's a good one. But Chow Yun-fat, I mean, no one's really challenged his authority as being like the first really major Western appreciated star since like Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan. But Chow Yun-fat was totally different because he was like cool and taciturn, and he had guns, and he had like 2 guns. But Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and Chow Yun-fat were probably on like the Mount Rushmore. But I can't sleep on someone like
Lee?
Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh.
Because she does everything but like backwards and wearing like harder shoes. Like,
right.
She does everything Jackie Chan can do.
She's the Ginger Rogers of Hong Kong action cinema.
I think she's better in it's Police Story 3, but Super Cop than Jackie Chan because her stunts are crazy. Like she almost gets killed like several different times in the jumping a motorcycle onto a train thing. And also she's a good actor, and she's way more famous now than any of them.
Yeah.
She's made that full on like break into Western thing with Crazy Rich Asians, Everything Ever All at Once, and most recently Wicked. And none of those guys could be those movies.
Yeah, that's true.
And she worked with Jackie Chan, and he was notoriously like dismissive of her, like even though she did everything he could do.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because he's like an old school, like Hong Kong filmmaker.
Do you mean misogynist?
I was tiptoeing around the obvious.
When you said old school, nobody ever uses old school to mean you had good qualities.
No. It was like a throwback. But and then in whatever she's done, she's made references to it because it's difficult to do everything the same and backwards and still have to like look a certain way and thing. And then Jackie Chan said, "Wow." And then I think time has proven her superiority in most ways.
She's done great.
So that's my 5.
That's
right.
That's a good 5.
Jackie Chan, Chow Yun-fat, Bruce Lee, Michelle Yeoh, and then one of Tony Jaa or maybe Joan Chen or someone who's like a real actress.
Oh, right.
But Tony Jaa's great. He doesn't get to speak very much, but he could do everything without special effects or wires. Like he just did it all. I was like, oh, he's kind of in that Jackie Chan.
Yeah, that's fun. I wonder if that, with the coming of AI and how accessible CGI is going to be to a wide variety of people, like they're going to stop being $250 million production budgets because the technology will generate the images faster.
At the end of that Marvel Captain America Brave New World movie, those massive screens of VFX artists are going to be one name.
Right.
That's what's going to change. That's what Ben Affleck famously said. The movies aren't going to change except for the amount of people it takes to make them. And the first thing to go is going to be all the post-computer generated artists and VFX artists, which is thousands of people who are about to unionize in the last few years.
I wonder if it'll put more of a premium or a value on practical effects and like people who are actually fighting, and it's not
on an actual location.
Yeah, it's not. It's all real. I wonder if people will start to value that more in the same way that like, oh, I'm going back to DVDs. Like it's just like,
things that
pulling back from technology as
right.
technology makes things easier. This is one thing I want to say about the drawer full of DVDs. If you're like, oh, you like them, all the movies because you bought all the movies,
and you can see them,
like
and
books.
It's
an overrated or underrated benefit of having the stuff there, because the thing that's annoying about scrolling through menus is you hate everything.
Yeah.
You're like, that I saw it, sucks, that sucks, never heard of it. I'm not going to watch a movie that person's in.
Also, you can't tell anything about someone by looking at their Netflix homepage, but you can tell a lot about a person by looking at their either DVD or book rack in a second.
Right.
Like if they have every Harry Potter book displayed prominently front and center, it's like, oh, okay. But if they have a bunch of Criterion Collection spines of DVDs, like, oh, so you watch more than just Fast and the Furious movies and things like that.
I remember a person once said to me, surprised, like, "Oh, you read?" And because I read a lot, and I was like, "Yeah, I read." Oh, great, someone I can talk to about books. And I was like, "Well, who's your favorite author?" And she said, Danielle Steele. And I went, "Oh, we're not using the word read in the same way."
Or author. My friend has a similar story. He's like, I was in the break room at summer camp, and there's a summer camp that was run out of our high school. And I heard an older student who was also working at the camp was like talking about reading. He goes, I'm reading a lot of King.
A lot of King.
And then he was like, oh, he's so stupid. If you think that saying Stephen King's name as King means same thing, right? As your Danielle. Yeah. I'm reading a lot of King.
This is you have a theory that enunciating makes you sound dumber, which is true.
Like, or artificial.
It
makes you sound as if you were generated by a speak and spell where you're putting too much emphasis on the incorrect syllables and not mumbling at all.
Right, because I mumble a lot, and you're like, yeah.
But that's what makes you sound like a human person.
Right, because if you over-enunciate, you do sound...
automatically generated.
Yeah. And then if a dumb person is trying to sound smart, then they
literally every single person there is an idiot, and I'm the only one who knows what they're doing. How many times has a dum-dum told you that?
That's so funny. The hallmark of dumbness is enunciating. I love it.
Oh, like job interview voice when it's not appropriate.
Right.
I mean, everyone does the, what do they call, code switching, but that's just, I think you've overcorrected. You sound like you've come out on the other side. It's stupid.
When's the last time you had a job interview?
What's that? A job interview. My favorite ever job interview was at a company called Celestica.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't know anything about job interviews, so I took my diplomas with me.
That's the best.
From framed glass diplomas from Queen's University. So I had them sitting with me in the chair, and when the gentleman came in and interviewed me, he was a systems engineer, and I think I was interviewing to be a job on like the production line. And he looked at me and my resume, which I did hand him, and he goes, "What's that?" And I said, "These are my diplomas." And he goes, "No, what's that language?" And I said, "That's Latin." He said, "What's Latin?" Now, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation.
I have not.
But if you're in a job interview with one other person and you try to explain to them what Latin is, you sound crazy. So I said, well, how all the languages come from like this one mother language, like hundreds of thousands of years. It's like Latin. He was just kind of like, and then one became German, one became French, and then some Italian, and then English, and we share a lot of words. And I said, "Yeah, it's my diploma. It's from the university that I went to, and they write all the."
That guy sounds like he enunciates.
He enunciates. He had never encountered Latin, and I'm sure to this day he doesn't believe that Latin exists.
That's funny. Also, I'm sure
that was my last job interview. That was probably 2002 or 2003, prior to the Future Shop year, which is my last job.
Right. One thing I love is that people in the comments section, it's going to be filled with people who are furious you called Germany a romance language.
That's the best. Is it Aryan?
I don't know. Theotic? Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
Teutonic?
Let's see. Let's filter out some of the dum-dums from our comments. All those Michelangelo stands. Did anyone come back at us about Ben Affleck?
No.
Oh.
What can you do? I think this has possibly been the greatest episode of any podcast, but certainly of Polymaths ever recorded.
Of the two, I definitely have fonder memories of this one.
All right, that's good.
Germany.
Is that how you end it? I guess that's how you end it.
German
I'm
is
Darren Rose. This is Suresh John.
And I was wrong about German being a Romance language. But in my defense, I was recounting a story from 25 years ago when I was panicking during a job interview. And I don't think he believed me.
Oh, so you were actually just telling the story correctly.
That was what I said. But I don't know how to say, like, what are you, an idiot? You don't know what Latin is?
It's very difficult to say that and get the job.
I did get the job, but I never saw the guy again.
Well, that's a tribute to your suaveness.
I worked there for over 6 days.
Is it 7? Is the answer 7?
I think on the 7th day, I had my exit interview, and they said, how come you don't want to work here anymore? And I lied and said, oh, I'm going back to graduate school. But I didn't want to work there anymore.
I like the idea that you took 1 week to decide to go back to grad school.
I think the decision between fake graduate school and real working on an assembly line at Celestica was a non-starter.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather go to fake graduate school because it's much easier.
That's going to be my excuse to get out of almost anything now. I have to go to fake graduate school.
Well, you don't have to say it's fake. It can be fake, but you don't have to say it's fake.
All right. This is Polymaths. I'm Darren.
Thank you for joining us. I'm still Suresh John. See, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
I was trying to say the end one at the end. I put it like an Ouroboros.
The cart before the horse? That's the other way.
The horse before the cart. Thank you.